I was the billionaire in the wheelchair that night, parked at table 12 like a forgotten coat, while 200 people danced 10 feet away. Then a woman I'd never met leaned in and said, "Will you be my date for the evening?" And her 5-year-old pointed at my chair and whispered, "That is the coolest thing I've ever seen." Everything shifted in 3 breaths. The chandelier threw gold on the champagne, the band softened into a slow groove. The room moved like it didn't need me anymore. I had chosen the corner for the view. It felt safer to watch life than to risk failing at it. And people did what polite people do, the nod, the half smile, the eyes that slide past. If it were you, would you have looked me in the eye or over my shoulder? 5 years earlier, a drunk driver sprinted through a red light and took a pair of legs I'd treated like permanent equipment. Hospital nights metal tastes new math for every doorway and staircase. My fiancée stayed through the first wave through physical therapy and rage and paperwork, then handed back the ring with a tremble I can still see if I close my eyes. I told everyone I didn't blame her because what good is blame when the future you promised just evaporated? I did what men who hate sitting still do. I built. My partner Jake and I scaled a company that builds independence, adaptive tech, smart home systems, prosthetics that answer the brain's whisper. The numbers went up, the awards found shelves, and my dinner table stayed empty. Tiana arrived like the opposite of pity. Red dress, soft southern vowels, eyes that held instead of darted. "We don't really know anyone here," she said, "and you look like you might be flying solo too. Would you be my date for the evening?" I actually turned to check if she meant the guy behind me. Yeah, that happened. Grace peered at the joystick like it was a spaceship control. "Does it go fast?" she asked. I told her it could, and when she asked me to show her, we did one slow lap around the table, her small hand resting close enough to feel brave, her laugh bouncing off crystal. People noticed. Some smiled. Some whispered. For once, I wasn't calculating escape routes. I was a man helping a kid make a memory, and it felt like oxygen. Tiana went to stand for cake, and I took a risk I hadn't taken in years. "Let me," I said. "Please. I don't get to do things for people much anymore." A tray 3 plates a maze through silk and tuxedos later, I set dessert down like a man who'd crossed a sea. Maybe that sounds dramatic. Maybe it was. When you get used to being served, bringing cake back to the table is a quiet rebellion. We talked like we had time. She's an ER nurse grinding through med school part-time, fueled by coffee and stubbornness. I told her about devices we build that give someone an ordinary day back, which is the most expensive luxury in the world. Grace asked if I made thinking legs. I told her about signals and sensors, how the body still speaks after pain, how engineering listens. She looked at me like I'd said magic out loud, and something inside me stopped bracing for impact. Then the band reached for a slow song, and gravity tightened. That used to be my life. Friday nights at a tiny jazz club, my then fiancé and I, laughing over terrible footwork and a cheap red wine. And now the floor looked like a country I no longer had a passport for. Grace tilted her head. "Your chair spins," she said. "That's dancing." I almost said no by reflex. Instead, I rolled forward. She swayed like a tree. I rocked the chair side to side, spun once, twice, the world widened. Tiana stepped in. We made a small circle that felt like the opposite of alone. Do you think that's fair, by the way, how one child's honesty can restart a grown man's life? We left with a plan. The park on Saturday. Simple, humble, non-threatening. I showed up early because showing up early is a love language no one gives credit to. Grace led the tour like a scientist on assignment. Swings, slides a pond, where the ducks have names. "This is Harold the Mallard," she said, as if she'd discovered him and filed the paperwork. Tiana watched with that hyper-focus only single parents have scanning edges for threat, while somehow still hearing me. Mothers do calculus in their heads most of the day. You know what I mean. We ate grilled cheese under an oak and argued very seriously about which colors count as happy. Grace picked red and yellow and her mother's sweater green. I picked the soft blue from the pond. Too quiet, she said, and I laughed out loud without checking if it was allowed. When I offered to pay for lunch, Tiana said thank you, without pretending it didn't matter. I can tell you this now. Honesty is hotter than pride. Dinner at their place folded me into a room that had learned how to hold joy. Small apartment, warm light, hand-drawn galaxies on a bedroom ceiling. I brought flowers because it's what you do, and a book about biomimicry because I'd been listening. The spaghetti sauce had a family recipe depth to it. Basil onion thyme, a wooden spoon, Tiana swore had seen things. Grace lobbied hard for me to read bedtime. I said yes like it was a contract. In her room tucked beneath stars, she stuck up herself. I read about dolphins and echo maps and she fell asleep mid-sentence, mouth open, trust complete. I looked up. Tiana was standing in the door with that quiet cry people do when they realize they are not carrying it alone anymore. The weeks made their own rhythm. Wednesday nights, kindergarten reading practice at the short table, while Tiana studies for pharmacology at the long one. Saturdays, museum lab field trips, the duck pond. Grace coaching me on the approved bread for waterfowl, because apparently we are not monsters. Sundays, cooking where I learned that sauce is stirred clockwise in that kitchen because Grace says so. In the lab, my team taught Grace to wave with a prosthetic hand, and she made a whole conversation out of it, which we had no choice but to pretend was completely normal. The engineers pretended they weren't charmed. They were charmed. Then the wolves came. Morrison Industries had been circling, waiting for bone, and they smelled it in a client named TechMed that made up almost a third of our revenue. Morrison put up a number we couldn't match without lighting ourselves on fire. I built the pitch, made the case, put independence and dignity into graphs, like I could persuade spreadsheets to feel something. The board smiled with regret. The CEO used the word fiduciary twice in one sentence, and I shook hands like a grown-up, while a part of me shut a door I didn't know was open. I called Tiana, voice steady, and told her I'd miss homework night. "We'll miss you," she said, and tried to sound like she believed it wasn't a big deal. I worked until the city turned to glass. Thursday afternoon, the decision. We lost TechMed. I rode an elevator to the lobby holding my composure like a coffee cup without a lid, and my assistant met me with "Morrison wants to discuss a buyout." If I took the offer, my people kept their jobs, the research kept humming under a different logo. I walked away with a number that would let me live comfortable until I ran out of horizon. If I didn't, maybe we wouldn't make payroll in 6 months. Do you think that's fair? The math business demands when your product is someone's chance to brush their own teeth. I did what I do when I'm scared. I went quiet. I let calls roll to voicemail, ate nothing, slept less, stared at walls that looked like a catalog and meant nothing to me. Friday evening, my doorbell rang. Tiana stood there with a bag of takeout and a kid clutching a duck drawing like a passport. Grace marched in like she owned the lease. "We brought noodles," she announced. And I brought Harold. Tiana reheated food like she'd always cooked in that kitchen. We ate out of white containers at a 12-seat table meant for speeches, and it was the best meal I'd had in months. "Tell me," Tiana said, the way someone says, "Tell me," when they already know they can carry it. So I did. Morrison TechMed, the buyout math, the employees, the legacy, the debt, the fear of being a man in a chair with a failed business, and a lot of apologies. Grace put her fork down like a judge. Do you remember the third little pig, she asked. The smart one with the brick house. You told me I was right to play her because I'm smart enough to outwit the wolf. She looked at me like she had time for one answer and one only. So be smart. Pattern interrupt. A 5-year-old gave me strategy. In the kitchen, Tiana rinsed plates and spoke like truth was a muscle you have to use, or it withers. If you fight and lose, we will still be here. If you sell and your soul feels slimy, we will still be here. I didn't fall in love with your balance sheet, she said, and paused because that was the first time the word was in the room, heavy and bright. I fell in love with the man who danced because a child told him joy wasn't over. Fight for that man. Mini CTA. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Saturday morning, before I could call Morrison, something wild happened. A 22-second clip of me and Grace spinning at that wedding found the internet. Somebody had recorded it on a phone and posted it with the caption, "This is what joy looks like." It took off. Millions of views, a comment section full of strangers arguing about dignity and access and how a little girl taught a room to behave. Do you think that's fair? That one clip can do what 1,000 demos and white papers cannot. A documentary producer called my assistant, then me, then showed up with a pitch I wanted to hate and couldn't. Let me show the work, she said. Not the hallmark, cut the messy version, the broken prototypes, the early mornings, the why on your engineers' faces. We filmed for 4 weeks. We filmed a veteran closing a fist without help for the first time since he'd lost a wrist. We filmed a teenager laughing because the robotic hand waved back. We filmed a woman rolling through her kitchen whispering, "I did this by myself, and I swear the room got warmer." We did not hide the chair. We did not pretend the world is kinder than it is. We did not music swell over hard parts. We told the truth and we let people watch. Here's the twist inside the twist. My ex reached out after the trailer dropped. She said she was sorry. She said she'd been young. She said she saw me now in a way she didn't. Then she asked if we could talk. I stared at the message until my eyes blurred, then looked at a photo on our counter of me, Tiana, and Grace at the pond, our mouths open with the kind of laugh you don't pose for. I typed, "I wish you well," and hit send. Peace is a different kind of victory. The film aired on a Sunday night. Monday morning, a foundation called with a program that would fund devices in communities that get left for last. A children's hospital wanted a demo lab. A rural clinic sent a spreadsheet of patients who'd been waiting years. We pivoted hard. Smaller contracts, more of them, less glamour, more good. We doubled headcount. We hired 2 engineers who use wheelchairs and rebuilt benches to fit the bodies in our building. We launched a scholarship for disabled students who want to break into the field and take our jobs in a decade. The wolves didn't disappear. They learned we bite back with community. 6 months later, I was back under the chandelier where everything tilted. Same floor, different story. I was up front this time, trying not to cry before the vows. Tiana was cream and red roses, and a hand that steadied me with a touch. Grace stood beside her mother in a blue dress that matched the ribbon in her hair, very serious about the job of holding a bouquet. We promised practical things, to be each other's emergency contact for real, to say the hard thing gently, to keep Wednesday sacred unless the hospital caught fire. When the minister hit the part about objections, Grace raised her hand like a student. "Excuse me," she said, into a mic that squeaked, because microphones always squeak at holy moments. "I have promises for Nathan." The guests laughed, then went silent, because 5-year-olds have a way of anchoring a room. "You have to read me bedtime stories even when I'm big. You have to clap louder than everyone at my school play. You have to help mommy remember to eat when she's studying. And you have to be my daddy for real, not pretend." I said yes to all of it, with a voice that sounded like someone else's. Tiana whispered, "I promise to let him help," which, if you know her, is the bravest sentence she's ever said. At the reception, Grace dragged half the company onto the floor and taught my assistant to spin. Tiana leaned against me, that exact weight you only get when someone knows you enough to rest without asking permission. A friend asked if I was happy. Happier than I knew was available, I said, and meant it. Now the part that might get me in trouble. The film helped us raise money because it made people feel. The clip of a man in a chair dancing with a child did more for our mission than a decade of data. Advocates called it inspiration marketing. Others said we turned disability into a brand strategy. Both takes have teeth. Here's where I land. Emotion opened a door, accountability keeps it open. We answer with devices delivered with salaries paid to people long told labs weren't built for them, with scholarships and service and a willingness to have the hard conversation on camera. If it were you, would you have used the attention or refused it on principle? And who does that choice actually serve? One more thing no one prepares you for. Field day. A kid asked Grace if her dad would slow everyone down because I can't run. She didn't blink. He can't run, but he shows up, she said, and that's the race that matters. I wanted to hug her and also ask the other kids' parents to do better. Do you think that's fair, the way we still measure parenthood by speed and not presence? I don't have a picture-perfect ending for you. That's not how real life pays out. We still argue at 11. Budgets and bedtime, and how many community clinics we can say yes to this quarter. Tiana still fights the reflex to carry every load alone. I still have days where the chair feels heavier than physics says it should. Grace still forgets her inside voice every 7 minutes. And still, Wednesday nights we read a duck book to the end, and sometimes to the beginning again. Saturdays we feed Harold like he's a relative, and when I roll onto a dance floor now, I check not for exits, but for the 2 faces I look for in every room. So here's where I hand the mic to you. We saved a company and grew a mission with a viral clip and a documentary that made people cry in their living rooms. Is that a win for the right reasons, or did we tap into a system that only pays attention when pain is pretty on camera? Should I have kept the lab in the dark and waited for grants, or used the light, then answered to the people who gave it? If it were you, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. Be kind, be sharp, be honest. If you've ever been table 12 in your own life, invisible until someone chose you on purpose, I want to hear when that changed and what it cost. If you're a parent teaching your kid how to speak about difference with respect, drop the line that worked. If you're fighting a Morrison of your own, say it out loud so the rest of us can stand around you and keep you fed. Stick around here. We tell the hard stories with the soft parts left in. And if this one found you, share it with the person who needs a seat pulled out for them tonight. Subscribe, argue, add your chapter. I'll be in the comments listening, learning, spinning when the music hits, because joy isn't over, not by a long shot. Your turn.